Hey everyone, Thunderbro here, back with another video on the topic of sports that I'm sure nobody's gonna watch. So 2 years ago, I was going through a bad bout with depression, and one of the issues when I face depression is that I can't really enjoy anime the same way. And Giant Killing is a 2010 soccer anime that I decided to try, but I just couldn't be bothered with anime at all because I felt like absolute shit, and I forgot about Giant Killing, and by the time I had overcome that depression, I completely forgot about Giant Killing until very recently, when I was motivated by Sharon to give it a second try. So I just had to talk about this anime, which I think deserves a lot more credit as an overall production, and from soccer fans. I'm going to be discussing this series not from my perspective as an anime fan or even sports anime fan, but from my perspective as an actual soccer fan. If it hasn't been made abundantly clear by my Twitter and my video on sports anime, I love soccer. It's been a part of my life since the 3rd grade. The play on the field is great, of course. Ronaldinho's phenomenal skills during his time at Barcelona both got me into soccer and made me a Barcelona fan, which I still am today. The club has a special place in my heart. However, what I love even more is the culture of soccer. Now, every sport has a distinct culture, and there isn't a major sport, in my opinion, in which fandom is not fun. But I feel like soccer is such a cut above the rest because aside from the play on the field, the stands are nearly just as important. Clubs around the world have decades upon decades of tradition and history, and quite a few are over 100 years old now. Even in some of the newer leagues, such as America and Canada's MLS, Australia's A-League, and India's Super League, they've had the example of the more well-established leagues to use as a basis, all while adding their own unique cultural flair. Aside from taking in the action on the field, which is usually exciting by itself, depending on who you cheer for, there are elaborate chants, amazing displays, choreography, banter, and lots of flags, banners, and scarves. And all are ingrained as an integral part of the game. In the majority of pro or semi-pro soccer leagues around the world, this level of passion is expected. Now, why did I go on a large diatribe about soccer culture when I'm trying to talk about an anime here? Let me obnoxiously lead you to another important and related diversion. HighQ is pretty popular, and some of the chants in it are pretty iconic and fun. But there was this one scene that struck me in Haikyuu that might even be my favorite scene in the whole anime. During the match between Karasuno and Shiratorizawa, during the match the Karasuno fans were hyping themselves up, with a few chants after the Shiratorizawa fans had a few impressive ones of their own. The Karasuno fans had a good one going that had just started to get the attention of the players, and they continued to sing well into the ball going back into play, and it was one of the most intense scenes in the whole show. What I loved about the Shiratorizawa match is that there was a match going on in the stands as well as on the court. Although this was a different sport, it gave me such soccer vibes, because that kind of rivalry between fans is such an important aspect of soccer culture. You always want to drown out the other fans, and you want to make your presence known to the players. And there's nothing like it when you do it successfully. Now imagine an anime where the fans were that impactful for the whole show. Not just mere spectators or commentators, but an actual important aspect of the match itself. That's the first aspect of Giant Killing that I really want to give credit to in this video. Giant Killing covers a fictional professional team called East Tokyo United, playing in the highest division in Japanese soccer, based on the real J-League. So all the teams aside from ETU are based on real teams with similar colors and names, because you know, trademarks and stuff. Now, like most professional sports teams, they have dedicated fans who show up to all or most home matches, and some are even more hardcore as to travel across the country to see them play. Giant Killing actually treats the two ETU supporters groups, the Skulls and the Edomai Army, as its own facet of the anime, and a decent amount of screen time is dedicated to their trials and fandom. From trying to cope with terrible form and keep spirits high, disdainful opinions of fair-weather fans, and even seemingly petty disagreements between fan groups and members that may seem pointless to outsiders, but are very important to the people involved. In Giant Killing, the act and form of going out and supporting your team is of equal importance to the form of the club itself, which is true for most supporters groups out there. And most things portrayed by these fan groups here are pretty accurate. As someone who goes to games regularly and tries to participate with supporters groups whenever I do, although I'm not as dedicated as guys in the show because firstly I don't live in a city with a pro team, nor are the pro teams I support even remotely close to me, but I do go to my local semi-pro teams games whenever I can, and am a regular member of the supporters group. I've also cheered for the Canadian national team with the main group, the Voyagers, and have watched an away game with the Vancouver fan group, the Southsiders. So I at the very least have a bit of experience in the things that concern supporters groups. So I was happy to see this aspect given real attention in the show, rather than the fans being there only to give exposition and reaction shots. The next major thing is the dynamics of the Japanese league itself. Since Giant Killing is portraying a team in what's supposed to be a real league, they needed to make the league feel real to the actual J-League. The J-League is without a doubt in the top 3 professional leagues in Asia. It isn't crazy far behind Europe either. So naturally, the league is going to attract a lot of foreign talent. Much like the real Japanese league, Giant Killing's version of the J-League has a lot of foreign talent from Europe and South America, alongside Japanese players. And this extends to coaches too. 2 of the primary characters in the anime are foreign managers. Dulfer, the Dutch manager of Osaka Gunners, seemingly based on the real Gamba Osaka, and Blanc, the French coach of the Japanese national team, who doesn't seem to be based on anyone, since the coach at the time the manga started was Bosnian Ivica Osim, and the manager when the anime started was Takeshi Okada. But this seems to be reflective of how Japan has had several foreign managers throughout its history. Other prominent characters are the Nagoya Grand Palace Brazilian trio of Roberto, Carlos, and Pepe, and Osaka Gunners Hauer from the Netherlands. What's even better about these guys is that they don't speak a word of Japanese. They all speak exclusively in their native tongues, and the coaches speak through translators employed by the club or the Japanese Football Association. This is good because it's accurate. These people are all new to Japan, and given the relatively short shelf life of your average coach and player on a team, they probably won't be there for that long. Given how often pro players and coaches move around and transfer, especially at the professional level, it makes sense that they don't know Japanese. These people are all new and are just there to do their jobs. They'll stick with what they know, which is their respective languages. And Giant Killing ditches the homogeneous language for convenience that a lot of shows with international scales usually do. Even in anime, you'll see some foreign person seemingly new to Japan say a few words in their language before breaking into fluent Japanese. This even happens when a Japanese character travels abroad. And I get it, it's a lot of extra work and money for studios to find people fluent in specific languages, and in the anime industry that's especially understandable because of how backed up and generally overworked a lot of the employees in those studios are. Yet Studio Dean went the extra mile just to make this league feel real, to make the characters feel real, and that's something I have to applaud them for. Other aspects of the professional soccer world are covered too. There's actually a soccer journalist with an entire character arc of her own, who covers ETU's games, and even the pitch-side cameramen are given some time to shine. The management of the team is also given some time, with the PR manager trying to expand their team's outreach, and different coaching philosophies are also a significant theme in this anime. Within the league, the main focus in terms of coaching seems to be on 3 managers. Fua, coach of Nagoya Grand Palace, Dulfer, coach of Osaka Gunners, and Tatsumi, coach of ETU. Fua seems to be your typical big money manager, the kind who blames their misfortunes on the board and or their lack of talent, rather than their own mismanagement. In his eyes, to succeed, you need talent and your club needs to spend and take risks. Fua is the embodiment of this kind of manager, because he was a former ETU coach but left because he felt like the board didn't understand that he needed top-tier talent. Dulfer has a philosophy, and he sticks to it, no matter what. He takes pride in the way he plays his teams. These kinds of managers are admirable, but that leaves them with a glaring weakness in that they become predictable. But just because you know what they're gonna do doesn't mean you can stop them. It takes coaching skill of its own to be able to beat out this kind of manager when they have a working philosophy going. Then there's Tatsumi, who can't really be pinned down to one way of playing. He's somewhat of a wild card manager. You don't really know what he's gonna pull, and he's known for being eccentric and unconventional. And every once in a while these managers do pop up in pro leagues as well. And they tend to shake things up quite a bit when they're not stirring controversy. There are of course different kinds of players relevant to real pro soccer here. You have the no-nonsense, tough guy defenders who tend to be quite the moral anchor for a team, inspirational captains, playboy superstars reveling in the fame and money, seeming not to actually take soccer seriously, players who pay way too much mind to their appearance, players fallen from grace and relegated to the bench, strikers finding goals hard to come by, and players return from injury fearful of getting injured again, hampering their potential. Overshadowed players, trash talkers, and bright-eyed young talent with a lot of potential and a lot to prove. Finally, the play on the field itself. This was quite impressive for 2 reasons. First is that it was mostly animated pretty well. I was told that a lot of the soccer scenes are rotoscoped, which adds a layer of realism. Basically, Studio Dean animated over actual soccer, and that made it feel even more real. The second is that for the most part, it's not that fantastical. The soccer is almost entirely grounded in reality. The craziest it gets is when players have long monologues in the middle of play, but that's about it. Don't get me wrong, I love the absolute surreal insanity from things like Kuroko no Basket and Captain Tsubasa, But as someone who watches real soccer, I appreciate that neither the mangaka Masaya Tsunemoto or Studio Dean felt the need to add surreal elements to keep the audience captivated. They were content with plain old soccer. Also, without spoiling any specific results, the league, like the real J-League, is played in a double round-robin format. Basically where teams accumulate points to place as high as possible. And without the constant threat of elimination, Tsunemoto is a lot less afraid to have his main team lose, since the story can still progress if they do. Honestly, the effort to make this show feel as real as possible paid off. I felt like I was actually watching a real soccer league in progress. Albeit sped up, of course. Teams based on real teams. Realistic soccer, actual fan culture. Realistic foreign players and managers. Realistic players, realistic stadiums. This anime is a love letter to everything soccer. If you're a soccer fan, absolutely watch this anime. If you're a fan of sports anime, at least give this a try to see how you like a sports anime that's more grounded. I was so positively surprised by this anime, and it's a new favorite of mine. Well, that's my video, everyone. Hope you found it interesting. Thank you so much for watching. Follow me on Twitter or join my Discord server if you give enough of a shit about my content. Thanks again, and take care, everybody.